When two worlds collide, magic happens. Picture this: a future king of England rolling up his sleeves alongside one of Britain's most beloved food personalities, their hands deep in soil, surrounded by young people whose lives are about to change forever. This isn't your typical royal visit with polite handshakes and carefully scripted conversations. This is the story of how Prince William and Big Zoo discovered that sometimes the most powerful conversations happen not in boardrooms or palaces, but while planting seeds in small pots, where authentic connections grow as naturally as the plants they're nurturing. What started as a simple youth hub visit became something much more profound, a testament to how genuine human connection can bridge any gap, whether you're wearing a crown or a chef's apron. The day would prove that real change doesn't always come from grand gestures, but from the quiet moments when people come together with dirty hands and open hearts, united by a shared belief that every young person deserves a chance to bloom. The morning sun cast long shadows across the courtyard of the South London Youth Hub as Prince William stepped out of his car, immediately struck by the vibrant murals covering every available wall. Unlike the pristine environments he usually encountered, this place buzzed with authentic energy. Teenagers gathered in small groups, some sketching in notebooks, others tending to raised garden beds that had clearly seen better days. The air smelled of fresh earth, mixed with the aroma of something delicious cooking nearby. "Your Royal Highness, welcome to our little corner of the world," called out Sarah Mitchell, the hub's director, as she approached with a warm smile that reached her eyes. Behind her, a familiar figure bounded forward with characteristic enthusiasm. Big Zoo, dressed in his signature casual style but with an unmistakable spark of excitement, extended his hand with a grin that could light up the room. "All right, Prince William. Ready to get your hands dirty today?" Big Zoo's greeting broke through any formal tension that might have existed. The prince, clearly delighted by the informal approach, laughed and rolled up his sleeves. "That's exactly why I'm here, Zoo. I've heard incredible things about what you're doing with these young people." The Youth Hub had been operating for 3 years, but it wasn't your typical community center. Founded by Sarah after she witnessed too many bright young minds slip through societal cracks, the space combined practical life skills with creative expression and mental health support. The gardening program had started small, with just a few pots on a windowsill, but had grown into something transformative. As they walked through the main hall, Prince William noticed how different this felt from his usual engagements. Young people didn't stop their activities to form reception lines. Instead, they glanced up with curious but unguarded expressions, some offering casual waves, others continuing their conversations. A group of teenagers was clustered around a large table covered in small terracotta pots, bags of soil, and an assortment of seeds and small plants. "This is where the magic happens," Big Zoo explained, his voice carrying genuine pride. "We call it the growth zone, but honestly, it's become so much more than just gardening. These kids, they come here carrying all sorts of weight, you know? Family troubles, school pressure, just trying to figure out who they are in this world. But something happens when they get their hands in the soil." 16-year-old Marcus looked up from carefully transferring a small basil plant into a larger pot. His initial wariness at seeing the royal visitor quickly gave way to curiosity when he noticed both Prince William and Big Zoo were genuinely interested in what he was doing.
"This little guy was just a seed 3 weeks ago," Marcus said, holding up his pot with obvious pride.
"Big Zoo taught us that plants are like people. They need the right environment to grow, but they're stronger than you think. Even when things look dead on the surface, there's usually life underneath if you know how to nurture it." Prince William knelt beside Marcus, examining the healthy green leaves. "That's quite profound, Marcus. How long have you been coming here?" "About 8 months, Marcus replied, his confidence growing. "I was in a pretty dark place when I first arrived. Got into some trouble at school, things weren't great at home. My mum sent me here thinking it was just another place adults would lecture me about staying out of trouble. But Big Zoo and Miss Sarah, they didn't lecture. They just gave me this pot and some seeds and told me to see what happened." Big Zoo pulled up a chair, settling in beside them. "Tell the prince about your tomatoes, Marcus." "Oh man, those tomatoes! I grew them from tiny seeds, and by the end of summer, I had this massive plant producing the sweetest tomatoes you've ever tasted. I took some home to my mum, and she couldn't believe I'd grown them myself. She said they were the best tomatoes she'd ever eaten, not because they were perfect, but because they came from my own hands, my own patience." As they talked, other young people gradually joined the conversation. Aisha, 17, shared how working with herbs had sparked her interest in cooking, leading her to discover a passion for nutrition. James, 15, explained how the responsibility of caring for plants had helped him develop routines that improved his focus at school. Each story revealed layers of growth that extended far beyond gardening. Prince William found himself genuinely absorbed in these conversations. Unlike formal presentations about youth programs, these were real stories from real young people who weren't trying to impress him. They were simply sharing their experiences with someone who seemed genuinely interested in listening. "The thing about plants," said Keisha, 18, as she carefully watered a row of seedlings, "is that they don't judge you. If you forget to water them one day, they don't hold grudges. They just need you to do better tomorrow. It's taught me to be more forgiving with myself." Big Zoo nodded approvingly. "That's exactly what I hoped would happen when we started this program. Cooking and gardening, they're both about transformation. You take raw ingredients, add care and attention, and create something nourishing." These young people are learning to apply that same principle to their own lives. "We're expanding the program next month. The local council has given us permission to create a community garden in the park across the street. The young people will design it, plant it, and maintain it. More importantly, they'll harvest from it and use the produce in Big Zoo's cooking classes." "That's brilliant," Prince William responded enthusiastically. Creating that connection between growing food and preparing it, understanding where nutrition comes from. "How many young people do you expect to involve?" "We're hoping for about 50 regular participants," Sarah replied. "But the beautiful thing is how it ripples outward. The young people take their knowledge home, share it with siblings and parents. Marcus's mum now has her own little herb garden on her balcony." Marcus grinned. "She's become obsessed with growing her own cilantro, says it tastes better than anything from the shops." Prince William spent the next hour moving between different groups. But what struck him most was how naturally the conversations flowed. These weren't young people putting on their best behavior for a royal visit. They were simply sharing their passion for something that had clearly become meaningful to them. Big Zoo watched the interactions with satisfaction. He'd been somewhat nervous about how the day would unfold, wondering if the formality of a royal visit might change the atmosphere he'd worked so hard to create. But Prince William's genuine curiosity and Big Zoo's own relaxed approach were creating exactly the kind of environment where real connections could flourish. Right then, Big Zoo announced to the group, "How about we show the prince what we're all about? Let's get some pots going." The suggestion was met with enthusiastic agreement. Soon, everyone was gathered around the large table, and Prince William found himself with a small terracotta pot in his hands, listening to detailed instructions from teenagers who had become experts in soil mixture ratios and proper seed spacing. As his hands sunk into the rich, dark compost, Prince William felt something shift. This wasn't about photo opportunities or public relations. This was about real people doing real work that made a real difference. The young people around him weren't performing for his benefit. They were simply including him in something they cared deeply about. The morning had revealed something powerful. That authentic connection could happen anywhere, between anyone, when people came together around shared purpose. As Prince William carefully planted his first seeds under the patient guidance of young experts, he began to understand that this wasn't just about gardening. It was about cultivating hope, nurturing potential, and creating space for growth in all its forms. The atmosphere around the potting table had transformed into something beautifully chaotic. Prince William found himself completely absorbed in the methodical process of preparing soil, his royal training in diplomacy proving surprisingly useful as he navigated friendly debates about the perfect ratio of compost to regular soil. Big Zoo had positioned himself as the jovial referee, settling disputes with humor and gentle guidance. "No, you're being too gentle with it," laughed Destiny, a confident 17-year-old who had appointed herself as Prince William's potting mentor. "The soil needs to be properly mixed. You can't just sprinkle the compost on top and hope for the best. Really get in there and work it together." Prince William laughed as he plunged his hands deeper into the mixture, feeling the different textures combine under his fingers. "I'm beginning to understand why my gardeners at home are always so particular about soil preparation. There's definitely more technique involved than I realized." "That's because most people think gardening is just about throwing seeds in dirt and watering them," explained Ryan, 19, who was working on a complex arrangement of herbs in a larger container. "But it's really about understanding what each plant needs to thrive. Different plants want different things. Some like it wet, some prefer to dry out between waterings, some need lots of nutrients, others grow better in poor soil that makes them work harder." Big Zoo nodded approvingly as he demonstrated proper planting depth for different types of seeds. "Ryan's absolutely right. And you know what? People are the same way. What helps one person flourish might not work for another. That's why this program is so flexible. Some of these young people need structure. Others need creative freedom. Some respond to gentle encouragement. Others need direct challenges." As if to prove his point, The group around the table represented a beautiful diversity of personalities and approaches. Some worked methodically, measuring everything precisely, while others trusted their instincts, working by feel and intuition. Prince William noticed how Big Zoo and Sarah moved seamlessly between different styles of guidance, adapting their teaching to each individual's learning style. "Tell the prince about your vertical garden project, Aaliyah," Sarah suggested to a quiet 16-year-old who had been working steadily on a series of small pots filled with lettuce seeds. Aaliyah looked up with surprise, clearly not expecting to be put in the spotlight. Big Zoo caught her hesitation and smoothly stepped in. Aaliyah had this brilliant idea for making the most of small spaces. "Go on, show him what you're working on." With growing confidence, Aaliyah led Prince William to a corner of the room where an impressive vertical structure stood against the wall. Made from recycled plastic bottles and wooden pallets, the system created dozens of small growing spaces in an area that would normally accommodate just a few traditional pots. "I live in a flat with my gran," Aaliyah explained, her voice gaining strength as she talked about something she was clearly passionate about. "We've got a tiny balcony, barely enough space for a chair. But I wanted to grow our own vegetables, especially since Gran's on a tight budget and fresh vegetables are so expensive at the shops near us." Prince William examined the ingenious system, noting how each bottle was carefully positioned to allow water to trickle down from one level to the next, creating an efficient irrigation system. "This is incredibly clever, Aaliyah. Did you design this yourself?" "Big Zoo helped me with some of the technical bits," she admitted. "But the basic idea came from seeing how much space was wasted when you only think in 2 dimensions instead of 3. We've been testing it here for 2 months, and it works perfectly. Gran can't believe how much we're growing in such a small space now." Big Zoo beamed with pride. "Aaliyah's system produces about 3 times more vegetables than traditional container gardening in the same footprint. We're actually documenting the process so other community centers can replicate it. She's become our expert on intensive small space growing." The conversation drew other young people over, each eager to share their own innovations and discoveries. Prince William found himself in the middle of an animated discussion about companion planting, natural pest control, and the benefits of different mulching materials. What struck him most was how knowledgeable these teenagers had become, not just about basic gardening, but about complex ecological relationships and sustainable growing practices. "The beans fix nitrogen in the soil which feeds the corn," explained David, 15, pointing to a companion planting arrangement he had developed. "The corn provides a natural trellis for the beans to climb, and the squash spreads out at the bottom, keeping weeds down and holding moisture in the soil. It's called the Three Sisters method. Native American tribes developed it hundreds of years ago." "Where did you learn about that?" Prince William asked, impressed by the depth of knowledge. "Research project," David replied with a slight grin. "Big Zoo challenged us to find traditional growing methods from different cultures. Turns out people have been solving gardening problems for thousands of years. We just had to look beyond modern commercial agriculture to find the solutions." As the morning progressed, Prince William began to understand that this wasn't simply a gardening program with some cooking classes attached. It was a comprehensive approach to youth development that used hands-on activities to teach everything from patience and responsibility to research skills and cultural awareness. The young people weren't just learning to grow plants. They were developing confidence, discovering their own capabilities, and building connections with their community. Big Zoo pulled him aside as the group worked on their various projects. "Can I show you something special? There's a young person I'd particularly like you to meet." They walked to a quieter corner of the space where a 14-year-old sat alone, working intently on what appeared to be a detailed sketch of plant structures. The boy looked up as they approached, his expression guarded but not unfriendly. "Prince William, I'd like you to meet Jamie," Big Zoo said gently. "Jamie's one of our most dedicated participants, but he approaches the work a bit differently than the others." Jamie nodded politely but didn't speak. His notebook, Prince William could see, was filled with incredibly detailed botanical drawings, complete with labels and notes about growing conditions, growth patterns, and harvest times. "Jamie finds it easier to express himself through drawing than talking," Big Zoo explained. "But his observations are incredibly precise. He's documented the growth of every plant in our program, and his notes have helped us troubleshoot problems and optimize our growing methods." Prince William leaned closer to examine the drawings, genuinely impressed by their scientific accuracy and artistic quality. "These are extraordinary, Jamie. You've captured details that I certainly wouldn't have noticed. How long does it take you to complete one of these studies?" Jamie looked up with surprise, clearly not expecting such focused attention on his work. "Usually about a week for each plant," he said quietly. I draw them every few days to show how they change. Big Zoo says my drawings are like a time-lapse video but on paper. They're much more than that, Prince William replied sincerely. These are scientific observations of the highest quality. Have you thought about studying botany or agricultural science? For the first time, Jamie's face lit up with genuine enthusiasm. I'd love to study plants professionally. I want to understand everything about how they grow, why some varieties are more resilient than others, how to develop new strains that can grow in difficult conditions. Big Zoo smiled knowingly. Jamie's been working with the local university extension program. One of their graduate students comes by once a month to review his documentation and answer his questions. They're amazed by the quality of his observations. As they talked with Jamie, other young people gradually joined the conversation, drawn by the obvious excitement in Jamie's voice as he shared his passion. Prince William watched with fascination as the quiet, reserved teenager transformed into an animated teacher, explaining complex concepts about plant biology with the enthusiasm of someone who had found their true calling. The scene perfectly illustrated what made this program so effective. It didn't try to force young people into predetermined molds. Instead, it provided a supportive environment where individual strengths could emerge naturally. Jamie's quiet, analytical approach was valued just as much as Marcus's outgoing leadership or Aaliyah's innovative problem-solving.
Right, everyone. Big Zoo announced as the morning session began to wind down. Time to clean up our workspace and get ready for the cooking portion of today's program.
Prince William, I hope you're ready to see what we can do with the herbs these young people have been growing.
As the group began tidying up their potting stations, Prince William reflected on how completely his expectations for the day had been exceeded. This wasn't a carefully orchestrated visit to a youth program. It was an authentic glimpse into a community of young people who were discovering their own potential through the simple but profound act of nurturing growth. The real magic wasn't in the plants they were growing, but in the confidence, knowledge, and connections that were flourishing alongside those carefully tended seedlings. The transition from the potting area to the kitchen was marked by an energy shift that Prince William could feel immediately. The young people moved with practiced efficiency, washing their hands thoroughly before filing into what was clearly their domain. The kitchen space buzzed with the kind of comfortable chaos that comes from people who know exactly what they're doing and genuinely enjoy doing it together. Big Zoo had transformed from gardening mentor to head chef, but his approach remained consistently warm and encouraging. Right then, everyone knows the drill. We're going to show Prince William how the herbs and vegetables we grow become the foundation for proper, nutritious meals. And remember, cooking is just like gardening. It's about understanding your ingredients and treating them with respect. The kitchen itself was impressive but practical, clearly designed for education rather than just food preparation. Multiple workstations allowed small groups to work independently while still being part of the larger activity.
Fresh herbs from the garden program filled small containers at each station, their fragrant leaves evidence of the morning's gardening success.
Your Royal Highness, called out Priya, 18, who was already arranging ingredients at her station. You're working with our team today.
Hope you can handle the pressure. Her playful challenge drew laughter from the group and immediately established the relaxed atmosphere that made the program so effective. Prince William joined Priya's team, which also included Marcus from the morning gardening session and two newer participants, Sophia and Ahmed, both 16. Their task was to create a complete meal using herbs and vegetables from the garden program, supplemented with other fresh ingredients that Big Zoo had sourced from local suppliers. The key, Big Zoo explained as he moved between stations, is understanding how fresh herbs can completely transform simple ingredients. These young people have grown these herbs from seeds, cared for them daily, so they understand their flavors in a way you can't get from store-bought herbs that have been sitting around for weeks. Marcus took the lead in explaining their menu to Prince William. We're making a herb-crusted chicken with roasted vegetables and a fresh herb sauce. The basil, oregano, and thyme are all from plants we started 3 months ago. The cherry tomatoes and courgettes are from our summer harvest that we preserved. Sophia's going to show you her technique for the herb crust. It's absolutely brilliant. Sophia, who had been quietly organizing her ingredients, looked up with surprise. Oh, I don't know if it's that special. Don't be modest, Ahmed interjected with a grin. You've perfected that recipe through weeks of experimentation. Show him how you balance the herbs with the lemon zest. As Sophia began demonstrating her technique, Prince William was struck by the level of culinary knowledge these teenagers possessed. This wasn't basic cooking instruction. They were discussing complex flavor profiles, cooking temperatures, and presentation techniques with the confidence of experienced chefs. The secret, Sophia explained as she carefully mixed fresh herbs with breadcrumbs, lemon zest, and olive oil, is getting the right balance between the strong herbs like thyme and the more delicate ones like basil. Too much thyme and it overpowers everything. Too little and you lose that earthy depth. I probably made this recipe wrong 20 times before I figured out the proportions.
But that's exactly the point, Big Zoo added, appearing beside their station with his characteristic perfect timing. Sophia learned more from those 20 failed attempts than she would have from following someone else's perfect recipe.
She understands these flavors now because she's experimented with them, played with them, made them her own. At the station next to them, a group led by Aaliyah was preparing what looked like a complex soup using vegetables from the vertical garden system she'd shown Prince William earlier. The aroma filling that corner of the kitchen was extraordinary, rich, complex, and deeply savory. "Alia, what are you creating over there?" Prince William asked, drawn by the incredible smell. "It's a seasonal vegetable soup using everything we harvested this week from our vertical gardens," Aaliyah explained, her earlier shyness completely gone as she discussed her cooking. "The base is made from vegetable scraps we saved all week. Onion peels, herb stems, carrot tops. We simmer them for hours to extract every bit of flavor, then strain it and use that as our liquid. Nothing gets wasted." Ahmed nodded approvingly. "Aliyah's become our expert on nose-to-tail vegetable cooking. She's shown us how to use parts of vegetables that most people throw away, like these carrot tops," Aliyah continued, holding up a bundle of feathery green leaves. "Most people bin them, but they have this amazing peppery flavor. Perfect for adding depth to soups, or making into pesto. And beetroot leaves are basically like chard. Absolutely delicious when you saute them properly." Prince William found himself genuinely fascinated by the level of innovation and sustainability thinking these young people had developed. "Where did you learn about using all these different parts of vegetables?" "Research, trial and error, and asking my gran about how they cooked when she was young," Aaliyah replied. "Turns out older generations knew loads about using every bit of food because they couldn't afford to waste anything. Big Zoo encouraged us to interview older people in our families about traditional cooking methods." Big Zoo beamed with pride. That conversation between generations has been one of the most beautiful, unexpected outcomes of this program. These young people aren't just learning to cook. They're connecting with their heritage, understanding where their food comes from, and developing relationships with older family members through shared cooking experiences. As the cooking session progressed, Prince William moved between different stations, each offering unique insights into how the program worked. At one station, Jamie was working with typical quiet intensity, creating precise, beautiful cuts of vegetables while explaining the science behind different cooking methods to anyone who would listen. His detailed approach to cooking mirrored his meticulous gardening observations. Maillard reactions occur between amino acids and reducing sugars when heated above 140 degrees Celsius, Jamie explained as he carefully browned pieces of chicken. "That's what creates the complex flavors and aromas in properly cooked meat. The temperature and timing have to be exact to get the best results." At another station, Ryan was leading a discussion about nutrition while preparing a vibrant salad using a dozen different herbs and vegetables from the garden program. "The variety of colors isn't just for presentation," he explained to his teammates. "Different colored vegetables contain different nutrients. We're getting everything from beta-carotene in the orange carrots to anthocyanins in the purple cabbage."
The collaborative atmosphere was remarkable.
Young people moved freely between stations, sharing techniques, tasting each other's work, offering suggestions and encouragement. There was no competition, only a shared enthusiasm for creating something delicious together. 5 minutes until plating," Big Zoo announced, and the energy in the kitchen shifted into high gear. Suddenly, everyone was moving with professional efficiency. Final seasonings were adjusted, sauces were whisked, and presentation elements were carefully arranged. Prince William watched in amazement as his team put together a restaurant-quality plate that showcased every element they'd prepared. The herb-crusted chicken was perfectly golden, the roasted vegetables were caramelized and aromatic, and Sophia's herb sauce added a bright, fresh contrast to the richer elements. "Right, everyone gather round," Big Zoo called out as the plating was completed. "Before we eat, let's take a moment to appreciate what we've accomplished today. From seeds planted this morning to this beautiful meal, we've experienced the complete cycle of growing and preparing our own food." The young people gathered in a loose circle, their faces glowing with pride and accomplishment. Each station presented their dishes, explaining the techniques they'd used and the ingredients they'd grown themselves. The variety was impressive: soups, salads, main courses, and even some improvised desserts using herbs in creative ways. "What strikes me most," Prince William said as they prepared to share the meal, "is how much knowledge and passion you've all developed. This isn't just about cooking or gardening. You've become genuine experts in sustainability, nutrition, flavor development, and food culture. That's exactly what happens when young people are given real responsibility and genuine respect for their capabilities, Sarah observed. We don't just teach them recipes or gardening techniques. We encourage them to experiment, research, ask questions, and develop their own expertise. As they sat down to enjoy their communal meal, the conversation flowed naturally between discussions of flavor profiles, gardening challenges, future menu ideas, and personal stories. Prince William found himself completely absorbed in genuine dialogue with young people who clearly saw him not as a royal figure to be impressed by, but as someone who shared their interest in the work they were passionate about. The meal itself was extraordinary, but what made it truly special was the knowledge that every herb, every vegetable, every carefully considered flavor combination represented someone's patient work, creative thinking, and growing expertise. These weren't just young people learning life skills, they were developing genuine mastery in areas they cared deeply about. As the afternoon wound down and Prince William prepared to leave, the impact of the day felt profound. This hadn't been a typical royal engagement with predetermined outcomes and carefully managed interactions. Instead, it had been an authentic glimpse into a program that was genuinely transforming young lives by treating them as capable, creative individuals with valuable contributions to make. The last image Prince William carried away was of the young people already planning their next projects, discussing new varieties to try in the garden, debating techniques for preserving the autumn harvest, and excitedly sharing recipe ideas for their next cooking session. Their enthusiasm was infectious, their knowledge impressive, and their confidence unmistakable. In a world often focused on what young people lack, this program had created space for them to discover and develop what they possessed in abundance: curiosity, creativity, and an eagerness to learn when treated with genuine respect and given meaningful work to do.